One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message: cops say legalize drugs.
Welcome back, everyone. Half past the hour, and we are visiting today with James Doherty. He's a former chief prosecutor in Seattle, Washington. James, welcome to the show. Oh, excuse me, James. I didn't get your microphone turned on. Let's try that again. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, my fault. Sorry about that. And James, I'm really excited to talk to you today because, of course, you know, the two states that passed marijuana legalization, Washington and Colorado, have been in the news quite a bit lately. And you were there before that all happened. And maybe you can give us an idea why Seattle was so progressive and how it was able to get legalization passed in that state.
Well, I think probably the people here in Washington are, particularly in the western side of the state, in the Seattle area, are fairly progressive. And we had a very, very good coordinator of the initiative campaign at the American Civil Liberties Union. And they drafted a very comprehensive ordinance initiative that really met the needs of a lot of people and the concerns of a lot of people. So I think it was the right place, but also it was the right people putting the whole package together and getting it to the voters.
Now, according to your biography, you were a chief prosecutor and also a corrections officer as well as a public defender. So it sounds to me like you've gotten a lot of breadth here of experience. And what did that experience teach you about prohibition and the need to end it?
Well, I saw the system grind up a lot of people in ways that weren't productive. Marijuana was being treated so seriously, and certainly some people use marijuana to excess, and maybe they have some problems in their life if they really spend all the time smoking. But it's not a danger to the public in the way that alcohol or many other activities are a danger to the public. And yet it was being handled so seriously and taking up so much time within the courts, filling up the jails, and ruining people's lives. So I saw it at multiple levels, and it just didn't make any sense.
So did your viewpoint on wanting to support an end to the drug war accrete slowly? Did this come about through time, or was there a particular moment where, snap, you just went, oh, this is not making any sense anymore?
Well, I knew it didn't make any sense, and I had just gotten, like many people, just used to the fact that that's the way it is. We've got all these insane laws that, treat it too harshly. And actually, I heard a speech by Jack Cole, one of the founders of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and he just made so much sense, and he laid out the facts and the waste of taxpayer money and the impact on the communities. And after his presentation, I went up and I say, hey, I want to join. I want to help you in any way that I can. And then for the last, about 8 years, I've been a speaker for LEAP. And I've enjoyed being part of the process of bringing about this change.
We've spoken with you now, and you mentioned Jack Cole. We've spoken with Norm Stamper, Pete Holmes. It seems a lot of people involved in law enforcement and the municipal operations of the city, the government there, have a very progressive and enlightened view on marijuana. And I imagine a lot of that owes to being in the western Washington, kind of a liberal Seattle area. But how much of that also owes to the culture of law enforcement there? Has there been what makes the Seattle area cops different than, say, Topeka, Kansas?
I don't know that the law enforcement people, the rank and file law enforcement officers, were any different. I think that we just had some very good people in influential positions step forward and say, hey, we need to rethink this. And because they were leaders, either politicians or attorneys, people in the community that had some stature, people paid attention, and I think they got more credence than some of the people who were just viewed as, long-haired dope smokers that just wanted to be left alone and didn't want to be prosecuted. The message was really being put out as a statement that, hey, our society can do better on this. We don't need to waste the money. We don't need to ruin people's lives. We can regulate it and hopefully do a better job of keeping it away from minors, and we can tax it and use that money for drug treatment and for studies to deal with drug issues in our society.
We're speaking with James Doherty, a former chief prosecutor, who's a speaker now for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And, in speaking to a lot of LEAP officers, we hear they had some sort of epiphany. They felt that there was some moment that, for example, Neil Franklin talks about his partner getting shot and how that kind of led him to this understanding the drug war wasn't working. Has there been any personal impact of the drug war in your life? Someone you know, some friends, family perhaps, who've been impacted by this?
Boy, I'd say, as a public defender, I had a lot of clients who were impacted by the war on drugs, and not just marijuana, other drugs also. And it had a horrendous impact on their lives, particularly those that got a conviction. And it made it hard for them to turn things around in terms of, maybe they were young and they did some things that they shouldn't have done. But then trying to get back on track is very, very difficult when you can't get college loans. You've got a conviction on your record, and it's hard getting a job. So I saw just in a lot of instances people that were unfortunately unduly impacted by drug use that wasn't, in many cases, hurting other people, but it sure ended up hurting them a lot.
Mm-hmm. One of the big controversies over the passage of I-502 in the last election to legalize marijuana possession, is twofold. One is that it did not include a right to grow your own plants, and then probably the most contentious issue was over the 5 nanogram per milliliter DUI, the per se DUI. You've been a prosecutor, you've been a public defender. What do you think about this 5 nanogram per se DUI limit? Is it appropriate? Does it need to be worked on? What would you do with it?
I'm not an expert on it. I certainly heard a lot of the controversy about it. Some of the articles I've read recently lead me to believe that maybe it's not too bad of a level. I certainly don't want people to be seriously impacted, people that are seriously under the influence and their reaction times impacted. I don't want them on the road, just the same as I don't want people that are under the influence of alcohol. But I honestly don't know. I don't have the experience and the scientific ability to deal with this, to make a decision of what's best. But I think there are going to be a lot of studies around the country now that will do some very good measurements so that we can understand at what level someone is impaired and what's the best way to test for that, and what's the timing. How quickly does marijuana move out of your system? And, we understand alcohol so much better in terms of driving impact than we do marijuana. So I think we're going to learn a lot in the next 10 years, particularly as all of the states start looking at this more seriously.
Seattle, of course, has the famous Seattle Hemp Fest that's been going on for over 2 decades with, hundreds of thousands of people in the park. And I get the opportunity to speak to some police officers there sometimes who will, always pretty much to a man and woman say that they'd much rather work the Hemp Fest than, say, a Seahawks game at Quest Field where beer is openly consumed. Do you think that large rallies like the Hemp Fest that are alcohol-free but pot-focused have a positive impact on the community and negative impact on legalization? What do you think of rallies like the Hemp Fest?
Well, that technically it is against the law here in Washington, as it's currently written, to smoke marijuana in public, in plain view, public view. But I think it is nice for people to realize that a lot of people can sit around and smoke dope and it doesn't lead to violence. But I think a lot of people understand that already. I mean, people certainly are aware from even back at Woodstock that you can get, 250,000 people or more together and smoking marijuana and it doesn't lead to chaos. The rain might lead to chaos at a concert, but not the marijuana. So I think that it's been good for the community to realize that this festival has been going on for, almost 20 years, but there haven't been any serious altercations, due to, marijuana use at the festival.
One last question, James. We've reported on the memo that came out, the August 29th memo about federal priorities. How much faith do you put in that with respect to rolling out Washington State's legal recreational marijuana markets?
Well, it appears that the federal agencies and the prosecutors are going to watch how things unroll here and in Colorado. I think that our initiative and the regulations being adopted by the state agency, the Liquor Control Board, meet the concerns expressed by the Department of Justice. So I think as long as things continue to proceed in a very regulated, tight system, I think the feds are going to stay in the background and they're just going to watch and see how this plays out. And hopefully it will set a good precedent for other states that want to move in the same direction.
That's excellent opinion there. And thank you so much, James Doherty from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We appreciate all of you there. Visit leap.cc for more information. James, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.